before we get into the business at hand, which of course is Tim Steidten, as no doubt you'll have seen from the title on the video, I've got to let you know that I won't be uploading over the weekend, and there's a very, very good reason for that. It's because Gio's getting married this weekend, literally arranged a wedding on the basically the Sackathon on El Sacchio. They didn't see that one coming. Hey, who did? He's not just getting married, he's having a baby as well. It's a miracle. It's a miracle, quite frankly. It's a miracle. You don't even want to know how that happens. I can tell you that. Firstly, we're not going to be here. At the end of the video, a few people have asked, how can we get Gio whatever, a Taylor Swift CD or whatever the case may be. How can we get him a wedding present? Is there a wedding list? There's not. So I've created something, and I'll give you the details for that at the end of the video. Right, for now, let's talk about Tim Steidten. No real surprise here, actually. No real surprise for me at all. Particularly if you heard my rant, was it last week's breakfast show that we did over on Patreon. I suspected that this was coming. It looks like Tim Steidten might be off at the end of the season. Just rumours at the moment, just speculation. But, like they say, there's no smoke without fire. There's a lot of smoke. A lot of smoke. Not quite an inferno, but there's a lot of smoke at the moment. Just reading between the lines, it would appear on the outset, and to read a few of the reports, that it's just down to the Niclas Füllkrug and the Guilherme signings. I don't think that that's the case, and that's certainly not my reading of the situation at all. I think you've got a situation with Steidten where he's getting increasingly detached from the playing squad. As I understand it, his relationship with Julen Lopetegui is not great. I'm quite sure we'll hear something from the club or from the press that will refute that at some point. But as I understand it, he's been spending increasingly less time. At the start of the season, he was at the training ground every day. It's not happening anymore. I think he hired his... Is his brother named Maurice? Maybe Maurice Steidten. He's not really been seen in and around the club either. And I think there's quite an unhealthy situation stewing at West Ham, really, and it may result in Steidten leaving. I don't know whether this is the club's doing or Steidten's deciding to leave, but I would be amazed if he is here next summer, which gives us a more immediate problem, which is who's going to be identifying the players if we're to bring any in January. Because there's no doubt in my mind we need a striker and we need an athletic, we need a dynamic, we need a fast midfield. That's just someone with some legs in there, really. And who's going to identify that and who's going to bring those guys in? I'm not. Let me just jump straight to it. I'm not too concerned about Steidten leaving because I think there's too much disharmony at the club at the moment. I think if he'd have just not got on with David Moyes, okay. I think if he'd have then not got on, to then not got on with Lopetegui, I think is not great. There's other suggestions and rumours from the training ground that there's other people that he necessarily doesn't get on with. And I also think that there's an unhealthy situation possibly brewing at boardroom level, which I think is probably the bigger problem. I also don't mind if Mark Noble steps in now. It's probably a shorter apprenticeship than he'd have liked, but I do think he's probably learnt enough. And I've always thought that Tim Steidten would probably go the moment his head was turned anyway, and we sort of saw it before with him, as we discussed, with him flashing his knickers at Liverpool when their director of football job was up and available. Let's put it that way. So I never thought he was here for the long term anyway, even though you'd heard him talk about long term projects and strategies and stuff like that. I'm not so sure on that one. The one person that I do know has West Ham's best interest at heart is Mark Noble, so I think if there was somebody to come in now and to maybe identify a couple of players, anybody that can identify and know what's wrong with that West Ham team, it's going to be Mark Noble. And so yeah, I just, if Steidten is going to leave in the summer, then you're going to be dealing with something like a bit of a lame duck there, really. What's the point? I've become increasingly more convinced since I heard Jack Sullivan's interview with Dodge that Tim Steidten was interviewed first by Daniel Křetínský. We never believed it. I remember the first time that we were linked to him, it looked like he was coming in. I remember doing a video with Gio and the pregnant one, and Gio saying that this was weird. This didn't seem like a David Sullivan thing to do. David, you look at the appointments, the managers that David Sullivan has brought in. I've always thought that the way he identifies people, he's almost stuck in the past. It's not just Allardyce, it's not just David Moyes. It's actually that even once someone like Rafa Benitez is past his sell-by date, we look at what he used to do rather than the next up-and-coming trend. We never have our fingers on the pulse. West Ham didn't have a clue we didn't have a clue De Zerbi was coming through, Iraola was coming through, and any of these sort of young managers who get appointed, we never seem to have a clue about. And the first time we were ever linked to one was actually probably down to Tim Steidten with Ruben Amorim. So when Tim Steidten it was suggested that maybe he was coming to West Ham. I remember Gio saying, this is not, David Sullivan's not done this. He doesn't know who the best young directors of footballs are on the continent and stuff like that. Not that Steidten was director of football, you understand. He was understudy to Simon Rolfs over by Leverkusen. And that obviously got us thinking. And there was a rumour at the time that actually this was Daniel Křetínský's doing. And so I think that's fair to say. I think it probably was. I think it was Křetínský's appointment. Although I'm not necessarily sure that that's why he's going to be leaving. As I said, I don't know if it's the club, because I think, here's the point. I think if Křetínský's insisted on him being here, I don't think then we can then force him out. I think Křetínský can make sure he stays. I think if he is leaving, it's probably because Steidten's decided to do so. And I don't want to make that point there. But I think it would be fair to say now, and most people would agree, that Steidten was a Křetínský signing. Crikey, it happens at Boardroom just like it happens with the players. And Lopetegui was a Sullivan choice. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility to think that Lopetegui's reporting back to Sullivan and Steidten is reporting back to Křetínský, as we've discussed before. That's not a particularly healthy situation. Now, I do think that Steidten probably is reporting back to Sullivan, but as we said, he's been absent more and more and more from the training ground. He's been there, he's in and around, he doesn't miss a match. He often is seen walking around the touchline before warm-ups and things like that before the game. But it's pretty widely reported now that his interactions between him and the manager, him and the head coach, are not great. And this is a slight concern. It has to be said, because look, everyone you may like Steidten. Steidten may be your favourite person at the club. Křetínský maybe, Sullivan maybe, Lopetegui maybe not so much. The last two, to be fair. But even once, if you decide that it's very unhealthy that everything's so fragmented, and actually, I think it's really, really bad for West Ham, and I'm slightly concerned about the situation. It has to be said, and I think behind the scenes, things are not good, not good at all. I don't think the Füllkrug situation has helped matters. I really don't. I think a lot of trust was probably put in to Steidten in terms of you go and get him. He was allowed to do things. He was allowed to spend money. Should he have been allowed to spend all of the money and given all? Yeah, I think probably you could make that point when you appoint a director of football. Just let him do it. I think the fact that he's been able to choose a couple, I think fair to say again, we've spoken about it before. He chose Guilherme, Füllkrug, and Todibo. Lopetegui's been able to choose a couple, and Steidten's and Sullivan's been able to choose one. I don't think that's particularly good, but as other people have already mentioned to me over the weekend and yesterday, there are a lot of clubs that have that sort of recruitment by committee, and I get it, and it's worked successfully for Liverpool over the years. But I'm not sure it's particularly healthy for West Ham because we are so fragmented anyway. We've got a bit of a situation here actually, because whilst I think if it is fragmented and he's decided to go, then okay, fair enough, he's got to go, and I think Mark Noble coming in would be fine. What does worry me is I do think the only person at the moment who is probably capable of identifying a good manager is probably Tim Steidten. So I don't think that's particularly good at the moment. Look, we may find this is a load of nonsense, but I mean it's really been ramped up. I mean even Tony Cottee today has started laying into Tim Steidten on Talk Sport, and before people say, "Oh, hold on, Tony Crotty's like a bored stooge," he's really not. He tried to do the was it Pi Capital? He was fronting Pi Capital. He wanted to get the board out. He was not and is not and remains not complimentary about David Sullivan. So he's not doing David Sullivan's work for him here. He's really not. I think he's just looking from the outside, looking in as a West Ham fan, and doesn't particularly like what he sees of Tim Steidten. And it's a complete mess. I don't know how West Ham have got themselves into such a mess. But this is why I said yesterday, and this is before the latest Steidten rumours came out, this is why I said yesterday that that anybody who comes in as a manager now would struggle at West Ham. I do not think we've created a good environment for anybody to come in and anybody to do well. And I think it would be a real struggle to appoint anyone. And I think the next appointment's got to be done properly. I think we've got to give him support. We've got to give him a structure. And it may not be the person that everybody wants, but whoever does come in. And I think it's looking increasingly more likely. I think the language surrounding, as I said, the language surrounding Lopetegui has gone from, after the game on Sunday, it's gone from the board are 100% behind the manager, although we're watching results. Then it switched to Everton as a must-win game. And then yesterday, I think it was The Athletic who said anything less than a convincing performance won't do, which is very different. That's not a must-win game. So it's getting worse. I find it very, very hard to think that Lopetegui can last, really. So if you concede that, then you have to also look at the fact a new manager may come in. Whoever it is, I think needs to be supported this time and have to have the infrastructure there. People would say Lopetegui's been supported with the amount of signings he's had, and I would agree. But has he had full backing from everyone at the club? I think not. I think not, and I think that's really, really important. I also think it's really important, actually, that it's a conversation for another day. But the more I hear about Terzic, the less I think he's probably equipped to do well at West Ham, particularly at the moment, particularly with. We have an opportunity to maybe move away and step away and probably introduce a different style of football. I'm not sure it would necessarily happen under him, but it would be tough. It'd be tough anyway. Tough for anybody coming in. So those are my thoughts. Let me just get to Gio now. Basically, in the chat below, the chat. In the description below, I've put a fundraiser, basically to try and raise some money for Gio's wedding presents. He won't. There's no wedding list. He won't ask you himself. He's too shy to do so, and he just doesn't want to do it. But I'll just tell you as it is now. He's not going on a honeymoon. Basically, he's going on. But so I'd like to send him on a dirty weekend. I say a dirty weekend. It was a dirty weekend that got him in this trouble in the first place, by the way, which is why he's pregnant at the moment. He's got a really big couple of months coming up. Basically, Gio's moving house. He's got a baby. He's got a bun in the oven. He's got a baby on the way, and he's getting married next Saturday. During the Everton game, did I tell you that? I probably already mentioned it. So I would just like to be able to send him away. As I say, he's not having a honeymoon. Also, and I'm going to try and get him a food mixer, by the way, because Gio is an excellent. I say he's an excellent cook. He loves baking. I couldn't tell you whether he's any good at baking or not, but the pictures he sends me of the cakes look excellent. I mean, they look really tasty, but I've never tasted one. Not ever has he sent me a slice. I couldn't tell you. They could just look beautiful, but his cakes could taste disgusting. I think that's highly likely, to be honest with you. But anyway, he wants to move. He's going to move into his new house. He's not buying. He's not rich. By the way, we don't earn tons of money by doing this. No one's driving a Ferrari. So which is why I would like to, if we can, get him a little something. Lots of you have asked and said, can we get Gio a, can we send him a voucher or something like that? So I've created this. It's me doing it. It's me asking, not him. He doesn't know I'm doing it. He's going to be absolutely horrified when he sees what I've written on the GoFundMe page. But yeah, he wants one of those mixers, got like a hook and a whisk and all of that stuff. Gio likes nothing more to relax than sitting at home watching back-to-back Jamie Oliver programs, and then learning a recipe and getting his favourite Jamie Oliver books out and following a Jamie Oliver recipe. Likes nothing more, and I think one of these mixers would make his day and hopefully enable him to make better cakes, which I think in the long run is going to be good for all of us, because we know good if he poisons that baby with his cooking. He needs to up his baking game, quite frankly. But look, all jokes aside, he's getting married. If anyone wants to donate, please don't feel obliged to. The link is in the description below. It's a GoFundMe thing. We can get him his mixer. We can send him away, even just for a... I don't know about Scarborough in my mind. We can send him away to Scarborough for the weekend, or I don't know, or anyone else, Whitley Bay or somewhere like that, the Lake District. If we can send him away to an Airbnb for a couple of days and get him a food mixer, then I think that would be a lovely, lovely thing to do. Anyway, so there you go. I am eternally grateful for everything Gio does, for Hammer's Chat. But for me, I wouldn't even be doing this video stuff right now if it wasn't for him. There's absolutely no doubt about that. At the start, when we started doing this, he had to drag me kicking and screaming to do that. I'm not putting my face in a video, and now I can't bloody stop. So there you go. And a lot of you are thinking, I wish you'd bloody stop, particularly with this Tim Steidten nonsense. Hey, look, not my rumour, all right? I've not made it up. It's out there, and yeah, well, somebody else wrote it yesterday first, and I'm sticking to that story.